So something that's been increasingly common in 2020 and also now in 2021 is Amazon requesting sellers to provide photos showing that the packaging includes manufacturer identity and also the address. And that's what this video is about. So you can see this is a typical example. This is what they tend to write. This is a message that yeah, someone just sent to us. I've been seeing this or almost identical requests from Amazon saying that the images provided do not meet labeling requirements, which state that any information added to the packaging must be, well, basically it has to be permanent. It cannot just be a hang tag or something like that. The images provided do not meet EU labeling requirements, which state that the label must contain the business name and the address of the manufacturer. Please provide product images to meet this requirement. And this raises a lot of questions, which who's the manufacturer? If you're importing this from a supplier in China or Vietnam, should you put their address? And so on. And what can you actually do if this happens to you? And that's what I'm going to cover on the following slides. So first of all, I want to show you, okay, where does this come from? Amazon is referring to EU regulations, and we also decided to have a look. And what we found when reading through some of these directives, like the low voltage directive, is that it's actually, yes, it is correct. They, in the various EU regulations, that in this case a low voltage directive that applies to certain types of electronics, there is indeed the requirement that the equipment, meaning the product's name, trademark, but also the address and identity of the supplier needs to be present on the packaging, on its packaging or in a document that comes with this product. And the very same also applies to importers. Okay, it is fairly clear. The same thing can be found in the Food Contact Materials Framework Regulation, that the name or trade name, the address of the manufacturer or seller must be present on the product or the packaging. We find this also in the Toy Safety Directive, which is identical to what I just showed you for the low voltage directive. Another interesting thing is we also found this in GPSD, or the General Product Safety Directive, which is relevant because the GPSD applies to all products, not just certain categories like the LVD. It applies to certain electronics depending on the input voltage, for example. Or Toy Safety Directive applies to, well, toys obviously. But GPSD can be said to broadly apply to all consumer products in the EU. And here we find something rather similar. The identity and details of the producer and the product reference could be an SKU and the product batch. They don't mention address, but details, like what else could it be? Right. So then the next question is, now that we've established that this is a requirement that can be said to apply to many products sold in the EU, so Amazon is right in that sense. But who's the manufacturer here? And that's another major question. So if we go back to the low voltage directive, what you can find in the text, in the directive text on the EU website, is that any economic operator that either place equipment on the market under his own name or trademark, or makes any change, then this company assumes the obligations of the manufacturer, meaning that manufacturer does not necessarily and exclusively refer to the factory that assembled the product. So many situations in which an importer, for example, could actually be considered to be a manufacturer. And this is also further expanded upon under definitions in this text. So you can just take this search definitions and you will find this segment in the directive itself. So this is very, very important to understand, because when you receive this from Amazon, it's easy to assume that, oh, they must be referring to my supplier in Shenzhen or something, which may not be the case. So what can I do if Amazon rejects my packaging address label? Number one thing is to understand what exactly is wrong. Is it lacking information? Is it because it's not attached in the right way? Is it not considered to be permanent? Is it because I'm using a non-European address, for example? That could potentially be an issue, especially now with the new authorized representative requirements coming into effect. But once that's done, you need to basically relabel the product. The packaging. That's the only solution that I am aware of. The problem with relabeling is that it's expensive. It can be ridiculously expensive to get that done, say in Germany or the United States. Assuming you can even find a service provider that is willing to take in their product and then relabel them, you will likely need to even pay for new product packaging. So to be honest, I've received a lot of reports from readers, and people just finding our website. A lot of Chinese sellers, by the way. And so far, I'm not aware of a single case in which they actually managed to rectify the situation by getting the products relabeled. So this can really be a headache if this happens to you, because it's really expensive to repack and relabel a product that's already been shipped. Even if this is a fairly small issue, right? This is not even affecting the safety of the product or the composition of the product in any way, but that's the requirements. This is the way it is, right? So how do I know what kind of packaging labeling information I need for my product? Well, the first thing you need to do is to assess which regulations apply to your product. That's really number one. Once you have established that, you can then start to, you can look into the text of these directives, which are of course public information. So you can find this online on the European Union website, for example. And likewise in the US, there's a number of official website like the CPSC .gov, for example, where you can find requirements in the United States. And based on that, you can then find out, okay, what exactly do I need? And another way to deal with it would be just to, assume the worst. Instead of spending 10 hours trying to understand whether you need to put the import information and address or not, well, just put it there. What you will need to consider in that case is, okay, you're selling in the EU, will they accept an address elsewhere? And to be honest, this is something I'm not entirely clear with, because if you look at the manufacturer definition, on the importer, they make it clear that the importer must be established in the EU, which makes sense, because otherwise you can't import something unless there's a company importing a product into the EU. But under manufacturer, they actually don't mention that a manufacturer is defined as an entity inside the European Union. Now, Amazon can still they can interpret it their way and say, oh, this should be a European Union address, for example. We're actually still researching this. We're trying to find information, but I would just, if I was selling on Amazon, I'll just assume the worst and just assume that I need this information. I need to have my information on the packaging, including the address, and it needs to be an EU address if I'm selling in the EU. So, what about the United States? Do I need the importer manufacturer address and name on the packaging if I sell in the US? It's required for some products, like in the EU. So far, we've primarily been receiving these reports for sellers that try to already selling in the European Union. But we have received some reports, especially for children's products, sellers in the United States or companies outside the US trying to sell there that have been having the same or very similar problems. Right? If you want to learn more about compliance requirements in the EU and the US, you can try our compliance tool on compliancegate.com/tool.